Hey y'all, hey, welcome back to the next episode of Toya Creates, and we are back to drama while I design. But we are going to do this a little differently today because the people said they don't like the new format, and guess what? I don't like it either. So I am going to get into today's episode as I have already watched it, just finished actually. And we're going to get into it per usual. So, beyond the gates time, let's get into it with my handy dandy notes. So we open up, we see Nicole and Kyle in the bedroom. Okay, we've seen lots of that in the recently. So more of the same. Then we see Ted. He goes to visit Bill in the hospital, and Bill is as cranky as ever. Okay, so he thinks Ted is in there to tell him about Andre visiting Bill the other day. So Bill is ready to jump on Ted, and Ted is like, actually, I'm here to check up on you because they have a little past, and they are the two men who have been in the Dupree family, and so they uniquely understand this situation. So then next we see Isaiah and Eva talking at Eva's house, and Eva is worried that Leslie is backsliding because Eva has been on Leslie's case. Let's just say that this week, in that she feels like Leslie is just basically focused on Ted, something that is never, ever, ever going to happen when she should be focused on things like Marcel. And yesterday, Marcel even offered to invite Leslie to live on Sheila, and Leslie was like, absolutely not. So speaking of that, next we see Leslie and Marcel. They are at Leslie's hotel room, and she is happy after that impromptu performance she gave yesterday. I was so confused, but okay, yeah, that happened yesterday. She just got up in Orphe jeans and she started singing a little ditty, and Marcel was so proud and whatever. So then they went to her room for a nightcap, and Marcel says, I know what you're doing and it's not going to work. And he tells Leslie that she would rather be holed up in this hotel room instead of having Nookie on his boat, aka Sheila. And so Marcel feels a way about that. And Leslie doubles down. She's like, I have zero interest in being your bunkmate on your brig. And I am Leslie freaking Thomas. And I will never apologize for wanting more and going after it. And so then she tells Marcel he can leave, and he does. And he leaves. So then we are back at the hospital. We see Bill and Ted just catching up. And Ted is like, actually, I'm not here to talk about the Andre situation. And he can also see that Bill's vitals are going up immediately, even at the mention of Andre. And Ted was like, I'm actually here to check up on you because we are basically Dupree men or Dupree family survivors. Let's just say that. So then next we see Nicole and Kyle talking about the impromptu mic night that she put on last night because Noah was he missed the sign up that was supposed to be at Uptown, I think. And so Nicole threw him a surprise impromptu open mic night in her home yesterday where Anita and the whole fam bam was there. So Nicole and Kyle are just talking about that and how it's time for cleaning up because the people left the house just dirty. I thought Nicole had a cleaner or something, but I guess not. So Nicole and Kyle start cleaning up. Then we see Eva in her house with Isaiah, and she's just talking about her mother. She just wishes Leslie would just basically do better. And Eva talks about how she had to learn to get out of her own way, specifically in relationships. And she talks about how she never really had a good example of relationships through Leslie, because we know Leslie had this man that she really didn't love, and then she got pregnant by Ted and got obsessed with that. And so this is all Eva has seen her entire freaking life. So she's gotten out of her own way in terms of her relationship. And she's like, Isaiah, I know you don't like your parents that much, or like you have sometimes he feels a way about his parents, specifically Elon, but hold on, that's bothering me. But Eva was like, at least your parents actually really love each other and they have stuck through things and they're a better example, basically. So then Eva just wants Leslie to let go of her obsession with Ted because she feels like she's basically blocking her blessings and blocking finding true happiness because she's holding on to something that is just never going to happen. And Eva thinks if Leslie could find some happiness, she and everybody else would be better off for it. So then the theme of today, as you can see, because I had to take it back old school, we did a lot of reminiscing to the 90s. Okay. We see Leslie remembering how she met Ted. Now, I know the week has been a little boring, but today was pretty interesting because we got to see the full backstory of Ted and Leslie. Okay. So Leslie starting to reminisce and she's working at this bar. She got her cute little bamboo earrings. She got her nameplate necklace, all the gold. Love it. Love it. So she's there bartending and Ted shows up in his best 90s gear. I took many pictures because he was styling. Okay. He looked like a drug dealer from the 90s, but from the 90s nonetheless. So Ted is there. He's just having a hard time with Nicole. This is the time when they are actively trying to have another baby and that baby ends up being a cat. They shouldn't have had the baby, but whatever. So Ted just feels like they are disconnected at the moment, and the only time he and Nicole really connect is when it is time to make a baby, and Ted's not happy with that. So Dana's really like normal and calm when we see her in this flashback. She is the bartender, like I said, and she's just a listening ear for Ted. And we also find out how he got the nickname Teddy Bear. Leslie explains that she's really good with faces because Ted was like, how do you remember me? Because she was in a different bar, not the diner where he claims he originally met her, because in these flashbacks, we only saw Leslie working at a bar and not this diner, but I digress. So Ted was like, well, how do you remember me? And she said, I remember people's faces, but sometimes I don't remember names. And so I give them little nicknames like Teddy Weddy, Teddy Bear. That's what she gave him, or like Nasty Nikki, like now. And so Leslie was just explaining how that's how she just remembers people and things like that. But other people seem to think it's rude and this and that. But that is how Leslie is so good at remembering people. And then Ted said he liked the informality. So you could see it happening right from that moment. Ted is exhibiting some restraint then, but you can see that he's kind of sweet on Dana Leslie already. So then we are back in real time. We see Leslie recalling what Eva has been saying to her, because Eva's like, I don't want you to toss aside a sure thing for something that is never going to happen, and that is Ted. So Leslie's just thinking about all of that. And then we go back to the 90s again. We see Ted and Leslie having a good old time, just chatting. She's still the bartender. They're still drinking, blah, blah, blah. This is when Leslie finds out that Ted is a plastic surgeon. He's telling all the business about the miscarriages, this and that, which is crazy to me, but I know it happens all the time. So then in this second flashback, again, he says that he's a plastic surgeon. And then he compliments Leslie's cheekbone, saying how she doesn't need any plastic surgery. Okay. So there we go. And this is the first time she calls Ted Teddy Bear. So then we are back in real time. Leslie is calling room service. We don't know for what, but we'll see that later. Next, we see Ted and Bill still chatting in the hospital room. And, Bill is just commiserating about his situation. He got caught the other day trying to have sex with Haley in his hospital bed and she got kicked out. So Bill's big mad about that. He's big mad about his current situation, blah, blah, blah. So then he jokes about them being Bill and Ted's excellent adventure. Again, more shout outs to the 90s. So I was here for it in this episode. And, they just talk about how a lot of people just can't understand what it is like to be married into the Dupree family. And then Ted says, and they definitely don't know what it's like to have to deal with a breakup in the Dupree family, because Bill and Ted know that all too well. We have seen both of their marriages implode. And this show has been on for just 2 years, almost. So then we are back to Nicole's house. Nicole and Ted. Oh, not I put Nicole and Ted. Nicole and Kyle are cleaning up and just talking about past stories of Kyle's kids. She's just learning how Noah had his little teenage streak and he threw a little party and they trashed the place, but they cleaned it up and they hid it from Kyle. Blah, blah, blah. So while Kyle is doing his best, Mr. Clean, he accidentally knocks something over and it breaks, and Nicole is like, oh no, and then it goes to commercial. So then when it comes back, we see Nicole sweeping up this crystal. I thought it was a vase at first, and then we see her apologizing. Kyle apologizes profusely for breaking it, and then Nicole apologizes for overreacting, and that's when Kyle, and this is why I like Kyle. He doesn't shy away from stuff. He was just like, okay, let's face this head on. Do you want to talk about this? And then Nicole brings up that what he broke was a crystal dish from her wedding. It was a wedding present from one of Vernon's cousins. And don't that make him your cousin too? But whatever. So then she apologizes. And so Kyle, of course, understands, because Kyle's a good guy like that. And he's very easygoing. And he's just like, okay, well then also, how did playing house tonight make you feel, Nicole? So then more on that later. Next, we see Marcel, who is back at Uptown because he and Leslie were at Orphe Jean's at first, went back to the hotel, that went bust. So he is at the bar ready to drink, and he comes across Grayson, who is working the night shift, and Marcel is like, man, I had a night, because Marcel and Grayson know each other from this blood plasma ring nonsense that's over, and so Marcel is there to get a drink, and Grayson wants to thank him. He's like, I'm grateful for what the boys in blue did for me during the whole blood plasma fiasco, and Marcel is happy that Grayson is on the right track and doing another gig. Now, I thought Marcel was supposed to be like a villain or something, but I feel like we've lost the plot there and he's seemingly on the right side of whatever is going on. Oh, I forgot to mention earlier when Leslie said that she was not going to apologize for wanting more and she kicked Marcel out. She was like, basically, it is over. She is done with her Temu cop, her Temu shaft, as people call him. She's done. So Marcel is now at the bar commiserating to Grayson. Great. So then after that, we go back to the hospital. We see Bill and Ted talking about how their marriages ended because Ted was basically whining about how he didn't have any control over how his marriage ended. Yes, you did. The control was not cheating on your wife and knocking up some side bitch, but whatever. And Bill, and he was telling Bill that he basically made the decision to leave Danny. Now, this is when Bill, the lawyer and the fixer, comes into play because he was like, well, really, I think there was some hope for you, Ted, and I think there is still hope for you and Nicole, because Bill thinks Nicole is just fighting these feelings, and that she wouldn't react so aggressively or anything like that if she was truly done. So Bill is kind of holding out hope that Ted and Nicole can fix it. But Ted is like, look, Nicole is not Danny. She is more absolute, and no. He thinks it's completely over. Okay, so Bill accepts that, and then Bill wants to know, well, dang, Ted, how did you go from Nicole to Leslie? And we'll find out a little later in the show. So next, we see Isaiah and Eva talking about how Dana, Leslie, and Ted met and how it was fate because Leslie has been caught up on Ted for 20 plus freaking years. This is crazy. Anyways, in Leslie's mind, they are the bold and the beautiful, Brooke and Ridge. Okay, Leslie and Ted were destiny in her mind. And Eva is like, I don't know. So Eva's telling Isaiah how they came to know each other, how when they met, they never felt like strangers. And we finally got to see it in real time because Ted was also trying to downplay the situation as if he really didn't lead Leslie on. But today's episode showed me that that was a lie. Okay, so we are still we are flashbacking, but through Eva's perspective now, even though she wasn't there, she wasn't alive. She's just going off of what Leslie has clearly told her. So then we also find out how Leslie ended up in the DMV. She had it out with Peaches back from wherever they came from. I don't remember. And so Leslie came to the DMV for a fresh start, and then that's when she ran in to Ted. And that's how they started laughing and connecting, and they became friends. So then we are back in present day. We see that Leslie had called room service to get a bottle of champagne and 2 flutes for who? Her and Ted. She on Ted's door. Oh, Teddy, wait. He doesn't answer because he's not there. And instead of Leslie being crazy per usual, she just puts the champagne bottle down. Now it was red champagne, whatever. Red. She put the champagne down and the glasses right outside of Ted's door and just walked away because there was no answer. I'm like, oh my God, Dana, girl, get some therapy. Speaking of therapy, back to Nicole and Kyle. They are still at her house. And she tells Kyle that playing house with him basically felt very comfortable, very easy, but it was an adjustment because the last time she did anything in her house like this, it was with Ted. So the last family celebration or whatever was with Ted, and this was just a little adjustment. And then Kyle, again, he doesn't shy away from it. He just wants to talk about it. And that's why I like him the best. He's like a fully realized adult man. He's not pushing Nicole to be super serious or whatever like Carlton was trying to be. And he's willing to understand, like, Nicole probably still has feelings for her husband. I get it, but I'm here now and I am confident enough in myself to know that I'm with Nicole and she's with me. So I love that about Kyle. So then she just admits that she did hold on to a few things from a time before Ted betrayed her, just like some knickknacks and just like that crystal dish that Kyle accidentally broke. And she's like, I know it's very different in that for Kyle, his wife unfortunately died, and that's why he is a widower and he doesn't have a wife right now, compared to Ted, who betrayed the family, had an outside baby, and then that was revealed, and that is what broke up the marriage. And so Kyle admits that he still has an entire storage unit in California with Sarah's things, which makes sense because of their kids and stuff. And he's just like, there can still be beauty in those hurtful situations. So love what they're doing with Kyle and Nicole. So then we go back to the hospital. Ted is explaining to Bill how Dana wasn't all bad, and Bill then asks basically like, well, have you ever thought about how things would have been if you chose Dana? So then we are back in our third flashback, and Ted and Dana are, to me, on a date. Now, she still has on her little bartender nameplate, but they are at a table. She is not worried about a shift, clearly, and they are just drinking it up, and just talking about everything and all the rough times that he and Nicole are still having. Now, maybe if he would have taken this time to talk to his wife, Nicole, he would still have her instead of sliding and grinning all up in Leslie's face. But whatever. That's what happened. And then while they continue to talk, Leslie is pushing up on Ted a little bit, like rubbing his hand and stuff. And Ted tells her that he can't, but he also notes that Dana Leslie is a remarkable woman. Okay. So then we are back in real time. Leslie is at the Uptown Bar and she is talking to Grayson. Leslie is actually being decent for once and actually friendly. And, she just tells Grayson how she used to be a bartender back in the day and blah, blah, blah. And Grayson is just like, okay. And then she asks Grayson if he ever heard of a drink called Black Magic. And Grayson was like, I feel like however I answer this might get me in trouble because he is Latin and she is Black, and I laughed out loud. That was funny. So we see them sitting at the bar just chopping it up. Then we go back to our fourth flashback. Ted and Dana are still chatting. He just talks about how maybe he should switch things up. And then he gives Leslie a gift. The gift is a little stuffed teddy bear. I'm like, oh, y'all go together now. Okay, that's what we're doing. So we got to see the full thing play out. So, of course, Leslie loves the gift that Ted gives her, and she just wanted to thank him with a kiss. It was supposed to be on the cheek, but then they started kissing on the mouth and they were making out. So it was it from there. So then we are back in real time. We see Isaiah and Eva, and Isaiah's thankful that Ted came back for more from Leslie because he couldn't imagine his life without Eva, because if Ted and Leslie didn't, Eva would not be here. So Isaiah is happy for it. And Eva's like, man, what? But Eva also feels guilty about her existence at times because of how she came to be. She literally wrecked someone else's marriage, and so she feels sorry for that, but Leslie don't care at all. But even though Eva feels guilty about it, she does say that she has a feeling that Leslie was not all wrong for feeling, Delulu back in the day. And we saw that for ourselves today because Ted most definitely was involved with Leslie, telling her he loves her, all the things. So he was just as much to blame as Leslie now that I see today's episode. But whatever. So then Isaiah's like a little distracted and Eva's asking what is going on, and he says all of the reminiscing is reminding him of his past because yesterday we saw Isaiah stop by the casino to chat with Joey. We really didn't know why. There was no rhyme or reason, but today we find out that it was a significant anniversary for Isaiah, and that back in the day he used to run the streets. Basically, he said he was selling weight, he was carjacking, doing all the wrong things, and Joey is the one who got him out of the life. And so I guess this was the anniversary of Joey basically indirectly saving Isaiah's life, getting him out of the situation, because the guy who they carjacked was some dude who was not for games, and he was about to kill Isaiah and his friend Des and whomever else was there until Joey stepped in. So, and Eva was just like, people say Joey's a bad guy and people hate my mom as well, but they're just fiercely loyal and things like that. And Joey does have good traits. And Isaiah is just very thankful that when he went to go work with Joey, Joey saw something different in him, and Joey just steered him in the right direction instead of pushing him more into that life. And that's why Joey's like, Isaiah, you are my legacy. You are one of the positive things I have done. So yeah, after that flashback, or after we're back in real time, Eva was like, after Ted and Leslie kissed, Leslie was a goner, and this is what started the crazy crazy spiral. Okay. We also find out that one of Isaiah's friends, Des, was not so lucky because he did not have the same resources as Isaiah. And, Isaiah's daddy is the chief of police. He had Joey, he had Marcel, etc. And so Des did not get out of the life, and he is in Jessup right now serving what sounded like life. But I feel like if they're bringing up this random character by name and we're talking about them so much, maybe we will see Des a little later. Let's see. So then Leslie and Grayson continue to chat at the bar, and she asks if you heard any new bar stories, and he talks about there was a guy in here a little earlier who was grumpy. He was talking about Marcel. But he did not say that. And then Grayson wanted to genuinely thank Leslie because I feel like shortly after the blood plasma thing, she offered Grayson Derek's old job because she saw that, he knew what he was doing and he's reliable and she needed some help. And Grayson said, thank you, but no thanks. And that's because, he was dating Ashley and that was real sticky. And so he didn't take the job because he didn't want Ashley to think that he was trying to replace Derek or anything like that. But Grayson wanted to take this time to genuinely thank Leslie for looking out. And she was like, you thanking me? Because most people here hate me and I'm not used to getting any kind words. And she was like, for one, he said, you threw me a lifeline. And then he asked well, why did you offer me the help? And Leslie, again, having a soft, tender moment. She was like, well, I understand what it's like to be in a tough situation. And, it looked like you could use some help. And that's why I helped you. Cool. So back at the hospital, Ted tells Bill that that kiss that he shared with Leslie sealed the end of his marriage because Bill is still trying to tell Ted that there was still a chance and there's still a chance now. And Ted is like, no. Basically, when I decided to definitively cross the line with Leslie and kiss her, that was it. He was officially cheating on Nicole, and there was no way around it. And Bill still thinks he could have gotten around it. And then we have the fifth flashback. Bill and Ted's excellent adventure were stuck at a Dupree family event, and they were talking at the country club. Again, they are in their best New Jack City outfits. Bill even has a little what do you call it? A little cut in his hair, whatever. I was loving that. So in this flashback, Bill is trying to encourage Ted to come back into the event because we see Ted calling someone and he is trying to get coverage at his firm and he's trying to make some other plans. And Ted in that moment was just not willing to listen. He told Bill that the marriage was over and he was going to go about his way. And that is what Ted did. He ended up leaving and he went over and hooked up with Dana Leslie. Do y'all think that's when he knocked her up? Maybe. I don't know. But he told Dana he loved her and she was the only woman that he wanted. And he put his wedding ring on the counter and commenced knocking her up. So Ted was just as wrong as Leslie. Anyways, back to present day. Nicole and Kyle are still chatting in the house and he just basically asks if there was a decision where she had second thoughts about things. And then we see the sixth flashback. And that was more recent when she and Ted were about to reconcile. But Leslie pulled the fire alarm. So Ted and Nicole were in the hotel, the Bowman, and Ted's room. I forgot what else happened that night to put them together, but whatever it was, they were about to kiss and Leslie pulled that fire alarm and that's what broke them up. So that's what Nicole was thinking about. So she's clearly not over Ted yet, and I don't think she ever will be, but she moved on and she basically said in the past she was a lot more in her head, and now she is following her feelings a little more. She is thankful that she ran into Kyle when she did, because she never thought about going on a blind date or anything like that. And Nicole said she is happy. And so, she never expected to have a new relationship. And now it's just going to be the two of them. And back to bed, Nicole and Kyle went. So then back to Ted and Bill. Ted did not see it then, but Bill was just trying to look out for him in the 5th flashback that we saw. And Bill was like, yeah, he understood what he did in terms of breaking up his marriage with Danny or just cheating on Danny. And he did not want Ted to do the same thing that he was doing. And he had hoped that Ted would be a better man than Bill was, basically. And so Bill tells Ted that it was good that he stopped cheating. Like, he commends Ted for stopping the cheating. And Ted's like, yeah, I did. I locked back in, but I didn't tell Nicole what I did. And that was my issue. And so, then Bill also is prying about Shanice. He just wants to know, how is that? Is Shanice just a rebound? And Ted's like, no, I love her and I'm happy I'm with her. And then Ted asks Bill, how are things with Haley? And Bill was like, it's fine. It's perfect. No, it's not. But yeah, they just have a really good conversation, and their friendship or whatever this is still intact. They've just had years of interacting with each other, and they're basically family through marriage. So that is all we saw with Bill and Ted. So that Ted is on his way out to link up with Shanice, and then he gets a text, and then we just see him walk off. Okay, cool. So then we go back to Eva and Isaiah just talking about how people think her mom is whack. And Isaiah talks about Joey, how people think he's like a big bad monster and this and that, but they're not as bad as they seem. We already talked about this, how Dana is just fiercely loyal and that she lives by that now. And, Eva says she is the same way. She is also fiercely loyal. And when Isaiah doesn't say anything, she was like, that is your moment to agree. And of course he does. And then Eva also gets a text, and she's clearly upset by it, but we don't see where it is. Then we see Marcel. He's back at the precinct. He gets a call, and he heads out, but we don't know who's calling. So then we are back at Uptown, and Leslie is apologizing to Grayson for keeping him late. They've made this black magic drink that she came up with. He thinks it's good, blah, blah, blah. And then she heads out. But it's very evident that Leslie was the one who called all of these people, because she said like, oh, I apologize for stepping away. I just had to call some people. And then she leaves the bar, and I think she's going into Uptown to sit at a table since she's clearly called Ted, Eva, and Marcel. But this girl is, we end with her being on Eva's couch holding the teddy bear that Ted gave her 20 plus years ago, and she's just clutching it. So I don't know what's about to happen next. It looks like Leslie's going to have a come to Jesus moment and a conversation with these people, I guess in Eva's apartment. I have no idea what's going on. So let's find out tomorrow. But that was basically it for what happened today. I got on my 90s stuff just to be in solidarity. No updates on the Andre thing. No updates on Haley and the poisoning. We are now moving into this. So let's see what happens tomorrow, y'all. Oh, and per usual, if you like content like this, like, comment, share, subscribe. I really would appreciate it. And I will see you guys tomorrow.